To all assembled here today, thank you for being here for Brian and for his family. To our elected officials, to the police members from all over the country, to his family and friends. Once more, we find ourselves together in mourning. It is too soon since the last time, much too soon. The Moore family is an NYPD family, and I know they felt the double blow in December, as all of us did. This today is too soon. But then again, it's always too soon when a police officer dies. I was still a recruit entering into the Boston Police Academy when I attended my first police funeral, September 28th, 1970. I remember it still. 5 days earlier, Patrolman Walter Schroeder had been ambushed and assassinated by anti-Vietnam War activists. Then, 3 years later, his brother, Detective John Schroeder, was shot and killed by 3 men robbing a pawn shop. The Schroeders were, like the Moores, a police family. 3 brothers, some of whose children followed them into the profession. I've been to too many funerals since then, and I remember them all. All cops do, and each fills us with a deep sadness to have lost a cop too soon. We are left to take solace in each other, in our family of blue, in a remembrance of the one we've lost. At every one of these funerals, at every one of the wakes, there's a constant refrain. Why is it always the good ones? Well, maybe it's because almost all of them in our profession are the good ones. It's not many of us who can't say we lived out a dream, but Brian could. He dreamed of being a cop. He dreamed of following his dad, whom he loved so much. He dreamed of following his dad's brother and his aunt's husband and his cousins. He dreamed of getting the bad guys off the street. He wanted to make a difference. Cops from this fine family and a host of others who grew up in these neighborhoods around us, they patrol Nassau and Suffolk and Queens and the Bronx and Manhattan and Staten Island and Brooklyn. That's not a new phenomenon here. Less than 2 months ago, I was in this very church to celebrate a funeral mass for another cop, retired long ago, whose eldest son, Larry Byrne, is now a deputy commissioner with the NYPD, whose second youngest son, and the brother of Larry, a cop named Eddie Byrne. The funeral mass was celebrated in this church in 1989, after his assassination in the 103 precinct, a precinct where Brian once served too. With so many cops around, no one can say Brian didn't know what the job could mean or what it could take, but he was living his dream. One of his friends said, he never showed up at work with the "why do I have to be here, puss?" No, it was always a smile. You know, as I've seen so many of the photos of Brian this past week, the only picture I've seen of him where he wasn't smiling was his official department photo. And in that photo, we tell him not to smile. But behind the infectious smile, behind the jokester, and the jokester, Ben Tucker, our first deputy commissioner, as we were standing outside ready to come in, talked about meeting Grandma Dolores last night. And as Monsignor Romano talked about the idea of memories that we will have for all time, even as we've lost a loved one. And I paraphrased the story. Talked about the last time that Brian came to visit at the house. He was always coming, he was always teasing her, always telling a joke. And the last time he came in, looked around and said, "Grandma, I thought this was a party. Where's the shots?" Sounds like Brian. He also had a love of cars, and we will forgive him the love of the Baltimore Orioles. Brian was a cop's cop in every way. When Brian went from Operation Impact in the 103 to patrol in the 105, his cousins told the guys at the precinct to look out for him, to take care of him. Word got back very quickly. Hey, we don't have to look out for him. He's a cop, through and through. He had an eye for the street. He loved working the street. He could smell a gun, as they say. He had the gift. Not even 5 years on, but he was already an anti-crime, 150 arrests, already decorated many times. As his cousin John said, if he shook your hand and said he was going to do something, it got done. We need more like him. To all of you in blue here for him today, we all need to be more like him. Because Brian's death comes at a time of great challenge in this country, for police officers across the country. We are increasingly bearing the brunt of loud criticism. We cannot be defined by that criticism, because what is lost in the shouting and the rhetoric is the context of what we do. A handful of recent incidents, fewer than a dozen, have wrongfully come to define the hundreds of millions of interactions cops have every year. When you help and you protect, when you offer security and bravery and compassion, what is lost is officers like Brian Moore and the people he served and protected. People like the hundreds who came to the 105 Precinct Station House to sign the memory book and brought food and flowers and handwritten cards. At the front desk of the 105, there are hundreds of cards from the kids in the schools in the neighborhood, each individually crafted. I encourage you in these days ahead to visit the 105 and read some of those cards. What is lost is the way we already work together, the ways we get it right. The policing of any community, of any city, is not solely incumbent on the police. What is lost is that public safety is a shared responsibility. In our democracy, it is our government's first obligation, but it's not entirely the government's burden alone. We all have a fundamental right to live free from fear, free from crime, and free from disorder. But while we share that right, we also share the duty to secure it. We all share the responsibility of adherence to the law, community and police alike. We share the responsibility of keeping each other safe, community and police. It was Brian's dream to do his part. My dream is a city where every officer and every citizen does the same. Despite all the shouting, all the rhetoric, we're closer to that reality than people might think, because there is a truth that most citizens know. The vast, vast majority of cops go out onto the streets to be your police. Brian came to this job inspired by his family, which exemplifies the notion of bleeding blue. All cops bleed blue. We say that while hoping it never comes true. But the fact that we know it could come true, we go into the streets anyway. That makes all the difference. We all come to this job in our own ways. The Moore family, those of you here in this church, the thousands outside, and the 800,000 around the country who are aware of today's ceremony. Brian grew up with uniforms and stories of the job from the time he was a little boy. I envy him that. For me, the profession worked its way into my heart as a young boy, not through family, but through a book. A book that 60 years ago, at 9 years of age, began my love affair with policing, with New York City, with the NYPD, a children's book. This is it, 60 years later, Your Police. A children's book with a simple message, but no less true for that. Your Police, published in 1956, a representation of the New York City Police Department at that time. On the last page of that book is a paragraph, the closing paragraph, that has stuck with me for all those years, and I think is so appropriate to why we are here today. We must always remember that whenever you see a policeman, he is your friend. He is there to protect you. He has dedicated his life to the preservation of the laws, the property, and the civil rights of the people in the community he serves. He would not hesitate to save your life at the cost of his own. 1956, New York City Police Department. 2015, New York City Police Department, as exemplified by Brian Moore. Brian did not hesitate. never did. The 35,000 men and women of the NYPD do not hesitate either. And in that regard, I'm reminded of the words of a former police commissioner and a president of the United States. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, Theodore Roosevelt said, who strives to do great deeds, who spends himself in a worthy cause, whose place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Brian was the man in the arena for all of us. And so with great honor and great sadness, I posthumously promote Police Officer Brian Moore, Shield 469, to Detective First Grade in the New York City Police Department. His family will receive this shield, 9002. That number follows shields 9000 and 9001, bestowed upon Detective Rafael Ramos and Detective Wenyan Liu. I hope that the 9000 series never sees another, but that is probably an idle hope. We are, after all, the police. Detective Brian Moore do it, and so do we all. It is why this job is so special. And the Bible tells us, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. No greater love. It's also reflected in our department motto, valor unto death. Brian, you were loved in life as you loved your friends, as you loved your fellow New Yorkers and your fellow cops, and you loved being a cop. And you will be loved for all time in death. So today, let us say farewell to Detective Brian Moore as he begins his journey to a new assignment. A hero of the city, a guardian at the gate of New York City, and now a guardian angel at the gate of heaven. The man in the arena for all of us. God bless him. God bless his family. God bless the NYPD. And may God watch over all of us. Thank you.